Yeah, slides are visible now again.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's moving, I think. Okay. Okay, fine. So at the starting phase, you have to find out your objectives, alternatives also, and some other constraints like price and budgeting. Then you have to evaluate in terms of risk analysis. Everything will be done here, and then we move towards the next phase, which is the coding section. There you need to develop and verify, and you have to test it. And then again in fourth step, where it's going to approach you at the same phase, at delivery phase, but if some amendment required after customers suggestion, again you have to start and follow the same process. So it's working like a spiral. Once you started, then going in same manner, and you have to follow the all steps. Let's see its characteristics. The spiral model combines the idea of iterative development with the systematic control aspect of waterfall model. So it's somewhat similar to the waterfall model, but in the iterative way, because waterfall model was the small once started, then after completion you can deliver it, that's it. But here, once you have done delivery, take it back, make amendment, and do the same processing, then again deliver it. It's like that. Spiral model is a combination of iterative development process model and the sequential linear development model, right? So iterative model, we have studied how the parallelly few iteration, or in the terms of several parallel groups people are working, and finally people are deciding, okay, which one is good. And then sequential linear model, you can say like the waterfall model. So step by step, very clearly, crystal clearly defined steps are there, who is going to do what. So in that way it's doing. And it allows the incremental releases of the product or the incremental refinement through the each iteration around the spiral. So that was not possible in iteration model, but here the amendment is possible. Spiral model having four phases predominantly. What we have seen here: identification of the problem, design, construct or build, evaluation or risk analysis. One by one we will see here more clearly what functions performed at what level. It's depicted in this particular figure. So here you can see build 1, build 2, build 3. Like a second step design, this is step 3. Starting from the step 1, what's done over here: system requirement, unit requirement, and business requirement. Then going to the next step in design. So different functions are given over here: module design, architecture design, system design. So it's working in that way. Once you reach here, after delivery or depending on the customer's feedback, you can start again and need to follow all four steps. So one by one we will see what's happening in identification step. In the identification step, this phase starts with gathering the business requirement in the baseline spiral. In the subsequent spiral, as the product matures, the identification of system requirement, subsystem requirement, and unit requirement all are done in this phase. So as usual, everything is documented, particularly in this phase. So this phase also include the understanding of the system requirement by continuous communication between the customer and the system analyst. So you have to take feedback from the customer what exactly you want, and once he's satisfied, okay, it would be fine, you can start for next phase. But it's in case he is unsatisfied at some step, at the end of delivery you can make again the amendment, that also possible. In the design portion, you know what's in design portion. Design phase starts with the conceptual design in the baseline spiral and involves the architectural design, logical design of modules, and the physical product design and the final design in subsequent spiral. And in the construct and the build phase, that is particularly called the coding phase, the construct and the build phase refers to the production of actual software product at the every spiral. If you are again bringing in your mind that particular block diagram of the spiral model, in the baseline of spiral model, when the product is just thought of and design is being developed, proof of concept is developed in this phase to get the customer feedback. Then subsequent spirals, with the higher clarity on requirement and the design detail or working model on the software called build is produced with the new version or subsequent upcoming versions. And finally, it's evaluation and risk analysis. Risk analysis include identifying, estimating, monitoring the technical feasibility and the management risks such as schedule slippage, cost overrun. So such things can be compensated over here. After the testing build, the end of the first iteration, the customer evaluates the software and provide feedback. Satisfied, fine, you can deliver it. Otherwise, you have to do again some modifications and you have to follow the same process. There are many applications of the spiral model widely implemented in software industry as it is synchronized with the natural development process of any product. Learning with maturity, you can provide good internship which involve the minimum risk for the customer as well as development firms. Because here risk is less, because in case at some stage customer want the modification or testing, that can be done at the some phase and it can be started again from the initial point, and compensation and many things are possible in this particular software development model. These are the few points for the spiral model. When there is budget constraint and risk evaluation is important, there you can use this one. Because what would happen, idea is not clear, technology is rapidly changing, then you have to opt the model. Their modifications are possible, some amendments are possible at any stage, so you can opt this one. For the medium to high risk projects, okay, if you are doing low budget project, you have to make proper documentation and calculate everything, follow the waterfall model, but that could be useful for small project. Long-term project commitment, because the potential changes to economic priorities as requirement with change in time, that is possible. Customer is not sure of their requirement, which usually the case. Sometimes or many times when you are giving some project or software development, many times requirements are not crystal clear in our mind, and some functionality is required at some point of time. For example, on the VTOP, some requirements arises, so those were not considered at initial stage, but now we need some step like your you can say your project submission tab if you want somewhere, or your file submission tab, so that could be included at later stage. So many times or most of the times customer is not sure about their requirements, and that could be added at later stage, because whoever going to give you order, that company or organization may have certain requirement, and he may consider future requirement depending on what kind of budget he can give, so they can add their new functions at any stage. Requirements are complex and needed evaluation to get clarity. So after doing one complete phase like water cycle, again we can start from some phase. So that also one characteristics of this model. Or new product line which should be released in the phases get enough customers feedback. So after every step you can get customer feedback and you can take care of requirement of the customer. Significant changes are expected in this product during the development cycle. So you have to continuously make some contact with the customer or the client environment. Okay. Here we can see some spiral model advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons. These are the advantages. The advantages of the spiral life cycle model is that it allows the element of the product to be added in when they become available or known. So anytime you can do, just previous points are summarized here. This assures that there is no conflict with the previous requirement and the design. So whatever previous requirement you have performed, you have to provide budget and everything. It's not like that we need now this and now prepare this one, remove previous whatever you have done. So everything would be considered for budget things and other things. That's why it's starting from initial phase. When you have seen the spiral, everything requirement will be constrained and budget and everything will be decided first, and then again next spiral will start. It's not directly coding phase, it will not go directly to the coding phase. Okay, and this requirement, this method is consistent with the approaches that have the multiple software builds and releases, which allows the making an orderly transition to the maintenance activities. Another positive aspect of this method is the spiral model forces and the early user involvement in the development efforts. So previously, if you see the waterfall model or iterative model, the client environment will not come into the picture in between, but here they can indulge and they can ask some modifications or they can request for their need again in between. Once, if you see, it takes a very strict management to complete such as product, and there is risk in running a spiral in an infinite loop. So that is the way. It's not going to complete like government projects. Working, you have to work on in that loop because there is no end where you can end this particular model or project, right? So limiting the time or that is very difficult. However, you can limit time for particular spiral completion, but again, it's very easy to find out drawbacks in any model or any project. So again, you have to start. So you have to take care the customer satisfaction at most priority. Otherwise, again, you have to restart and it will go forever. So discipline of change and the extent of taking changes request is very important to the development and the deployment of the product successfully. These are some cons, advantages. Yeah, so these are summarized advantages, that same thing almost. Disadvantages, management is more complex as we discussed earlier. Process is also complex. No one can understand going on in the spiral. Spiral may go indefinitely. Large number of intermediate stages require extensive documentation because here every step documentation required. Sometimes many engineers may think why this documentation start, we can directly start with coding, right? So such model also there. Next model is the V model. Let us have see the first its block diagram. So it's a look like this. So here you see its a shape is looking like V shape. These are two sides of the V, this one and this one, and this is what you say the vertex or the sharp face of the V, and this is opening of V. So you observe here clearly the coding is done exactly at the middle point of two sides of the V, and the other steps you are well aware regarding that. So it's a model in this way, requirement analysis, phase by phase it's going. So if you are seeing only this end, how it's look like waterfall model. But on the other hand, if you are seeing testing and everything is done at the same phase itself, and even some amendment also possible, and then going towards the client end, however they can indulge here also. So requirement analysis as an output delivered as an input to the system design, similar case for others also, and then coding is done, and parallelly you can observe here unit test design. So four modules are here: requirement analysis, system design, architecture design, and module design. Then coding is performed, but testing is performed as each and every phase. For instance, seeing from the top, acceptance test design, system test design. So every step it is done, and the integration and other things are performed step by step. So it's going in the V shape. So this is the point where you can start coding, but every step amendment is possible. Let us see technically what is there. The V model is an SDLC model where execution processes happens in sequential manner in V shape, also known as verification and validation model. Why verification and validation model? Because you are verifying at every step and then validating with the client end also. The V model is extension of waterfall model and based on the association with testing phase for each corresponding development stage. So why I said waterfall model, because if you see from here, it's exactly same steps what you are following, but additional some accessories are here. So you were delivering from starting from this step coding and then up to here at the acceptance, right? So linearly waterfall model working in this way, but here you have connected the intermediate phases and some amendment possible in between. What does it mean by connecting all those phases? Every single phase in development cycle there is directly associated with testing phase. That is important, because in the end you should not struggle or less chance of failures. This is highly disciplined model, and next phase starts only after completion of previous phase. So that is same point as waterfall model, but what is additional thing? Testing. You have a flexibility to test every phase, which you are not seeing in the case of waterfall model. More simplified or elaborated in different block diagram, same thing you can see here. And V model design, first phase is design. Under this section of V type model, the corresponding testing phase of the development phase is planned in the parallel. If you can bring your block diagram in your mind, you can understand this one. So parallel testing is available here. Okay, so verification phases on the one side of the V and validation phases on the other side. Verification, and this is one side, this is the other side. And as you can see, coding is performed at the joints of two sides of the V model. So this is a coding and these are two other sides of the V model. So coding is performed here. These are few briefs about this particular model. This is the first phase of the first phase in this development model was the business requirement analysis. So generally it was written requirement analysis. As you know what is done over here. First phase in development cycle where the product requirements are understood from the customer's perspectives. The phase involved the detailed communication with the customer to understand his expectation and the exact requirement. So if you are remembering all those things correctly, you can fit those characteristics in every model. It is very important activity, need to be managed well, and most of the customers are not sure about what exactly they need. So acceptance test design planning is done at this stage, as the business requirement can be used as the input for the acceptance testing. So some step you can ignore or you can accept, and then you can proceed for next phase. Next step was the system design. You know what is system design? It's a clear and detailed product requirement and the time to design and completion of project. So delivery time would be decided over here. System design will have understanding and detailed complete hardware and communication setup for under the product under development. So those things will be decided over here. System test plan is developed based on the system design. Doing this as early stage leaves more time for actual test and execution later. So that's how the system design is executed in this model, and architectural design is next step in this model. Few steps, one new portion is here. In this system design model is broken into the few modules taking up different functionalities, and sometimes it's called high level design also. So separate team will work on different module. Data transfer and communication between the internal modules with the outer side world is clearly understood and defined in this stage. And finally, the module design. In this particular phase, detailed internal design of all system modules is specified, and which is referred as low level design. It is important that design is compatible with the other modules so that integration would be easy, because separate teams are working. Finally, you have to integrate the modules. Unit tests are the essential part of development process and help to eliminate the maximum faults and the errors at the early stage, because each step or each phase is tested separately. So there are no chances or less chances to carry the error for further stages. These unit tests can be designed at the stage based on the internal design module. And finally, coding phase, you know what's the coding phase and who is going to do. And again, the validation will be performed. So in the validation phase, each phase will test it separately, and again feedback would be sent towards the concerned phase what was considered in the one side of the V. Okay. Yeah. So here we are. So if some problem is there, they can communicate in between, and again directly you can come rather than going here, and again you can test it. So it having the 4 steps: unit testing, integration testing, and the system testing, and the acceptance testing, finally the delivery. That's it. That's all about this particular model. Okay, applications and others are similar, and you can read it. It's just a theoretical portion. Final is coming Agile model. So here you can see everything is well documented in previous model and defined crystal clearly. There is no flexibility. You cannot skip something. But Agile model is something which giving more flexibility to the coders and designers as well as to the customer end also. So Agile model is the combination of iterative model and the incremental process. So iterative model, parallel teams were working in the one direction, and finally you accept one thing and deliver. Incremental means you are dividing the complete project into the small module and you are testing separately, and then again integration engineer will integrate all those modules and finally launch as a big project, and then it would be tested separately. So process is like that. So it's just a combo or hybrid of these two particular ideas. It mainly focus on the adaptability and the customer satisfaction by rapid delivery of the working software product. So it's a very you can say um, practical or pragmatic. So as I said, the complete project would be divided into small modules and then certain increment, and step by step it would be followed. Let's see its block diagram. These builds are provided in iterations. Each iteration typically lasts about 1 to 3 weeks. So it's not going to take much time also. So this is how it's done. Starts from here, development, release, accept, yes, no, then again come to decide everything, then again come here, then start in this. So Agile methodology is working in this way. So this is general block diagram. I will show you the exact block diagram. So in this way, people are working in the iteration. They can take interns also. So you people are doing some internship, they can include you. They will take your help and they will complete their project. So they are doing an iteration. Many times you are thinking why the company is providing internship and how it's working, because they are giving you a small portion of one project because that is also running in one other phase as well. So here chances are there for a student who can complete the internship if some project or some company is working on project with following this particular model. So a few students can work on here same project, few students can work here, few students can work here. Ultimately all are doing same work, and some time delivery is concerned, but they are doing incremental also. So some increment is there, then again in same way. So they are moving to next step also, and in the iteration wise. So it's just a combination of incremental plus iteration idea. So characteristics and other things may be common, or a few additional points may be there. You can see during your exam time. So everything is here. Thank you. So I'll stop here. So you people are here or just run away? Shall I take your attendance? Oh, 58 are here. So Harshvardhan is here. Harshvardhan.
Yes, sir. Present, sir.
Ronak.
Yes, sir.
Ramesh.
Present, sir.
Then Gupta.
Present, sir.
Okay, Sayak. Sayak Banerjee, are you absent? Vivekananda Reddy. Nityan Patra.
Sir.
Okay,